Hey everybody, it's John from Summit Coatings. One more video for you guys. I'm bidding on a job. It's for a new restaurant, and primarily it's going to be polished concrete, and we're looking at doing some stains on it, and we're going to do it to a matte finish, 2 coats of sealant, and a burnish. Flake floor kitchen's about 400 square feet. We might put coping on that. We're still talking about it. But the one thing I have to do is I have to do a sample board for their 2 bathrooms. It's not a big space, maybe 130 square feet, split between the 2 of them. But they sent me a picture of a bathroom or a floor that they saw, and it's black and it's gold. So what I gotta do is make a sample board for them. I'll show you this board in a second. It's probably about 3x4. I'm going to split it in half. I'm going to do half a dirty pour with black pigment and then metallic gold paint. And then I'm going to do the other half in a solid pour, and I'll show you how we can use a paint on that too. For a job this big, it's about 3,000 square feet. I think you owe your customers to give them a representation of what their floor would look like. And that's the thing. You gotta tell them that, you know, I can do this here on my garage floor, on this sample board, with all this equipment in my experience, but it's not gonna look exactly the same in their bathroom. It'll look close, but every floor you do, every project you do is different. You can't control epoxy to that degree to make it look exactly like you would see in the sample. That being said, yeah, once again, it's a 3,000 square foot job. It's big. I've already gave them a sample of the flake floor, and as you probably heard me talk about earlier, flake floor is flake floor. It covers everything. It looks the same way every time you do it. So there's no question that's how that's going to turn out. I am going to offer to go in there and do probably 2 4x4 squares of polished concrete to the matte finish. So that's 8 runs of the grinder with the stain. And I'm going to do on each square half with no stain, with the stain, no stain, and maybe do a full 3,000 10 pass finish, 3,500, and then the stain next to that, just to give them options. I can bust that out in a couple hours in an afternoon. I can do it with a hand grinder. And again, for the bigger jobs, I think you owe it to your customers, just give them a sample. Let them see what they're gonna end up with. That way you don't invest all that time grinding and epoxying and doing all this work, and then they don't like what they see. So I'm going to explain what we have here, what we're going to do. We'll do it, and I'll show you the end result. Okay, so what do we have here? We have I don't know, it's about a 3x4 piece of MDF cut by the dudes at Lowe's. It's not exact. I don't think anything they do is that exact, but one thing I learned about these sample boards is just spend a little extra bit of time and just take a chip brush, mix a little bit of epoxy, and just do the outsides. That really helps the tape to stick, because this MDF is so porous that the blue painter's tape won't stick to it. It just takes a few seconds. It costs a couple of cents to do, and it gives you a better dam to keep that epoxy down. So what we did here is that we took our hand grinder, we got 30 grit on here. We really kind of just roughed up the surface for the epoxy to stick to it. We have our rock hard USA A and B mix here. It's a 3-to-1 mix. I'm not actually going to coat it with the final T200 clear coat epoxy because it's expensive. But this is a bathroom project. The T200, and I'll show you the specs here in a second, it has enhanced traction to it. They want the black, so I got this from XPS. This is black number 1057. So we'll see how this turns out. Rust-Oleum metallic gold. Rust-Oleum and epoxy are like best buds. They go together. We have our measuring cups. We have our stirring sticks. This is what we're going to use to kind of make that straight pour veins with the gold look good. Always have to have a whole bunch of shop towels or painter's tape. We have our thing of iso alcohol here, gloves, and clean workspace. Like I said, this has been sanded, and then I used a bunch of rags with acetone to clean it up. And let's get mixing. All right, so here we go. We got our part A. We have our number 1057 black tint in here. It's all mixed up. We have our appropriate amount of part B. We're going to mix it in the bigger bucket here. One thing I've learned is that I'm probably going a little bit overboard on what I'm mixing up here, but when I do these calculations for floors, it's like every floor is different. And then you do a job, and then you think you have the perfect amount of epoxy to pour down on it, and all of a sudden it's the most porous floor you've ever seen. And then halfway through the job, you know that you're going to come up short, and now you're doing the emergency mix. You're opening up new buckets and cans, and the clock is ticking, because if you don't get that epoxy down soon, that first part of that floor is going to set up, and you're going to see the seam that goes through it. So what I do nowadays is I'll mix like 10-20% more than I think I'll need. Yeah, I'm spending some extra money, but at the same time, I don't want to do those panic pours or the panic mixes. It's better to have a little bit more than a little bit less. If you do mix too much and you put it on your floor, one good tip my buddy Corey taught me was that take a dustpan. At the very end of your job, take your squeegee, put it into your dustpan, and then dump it into a bucket. And then end up with what you need to have. But again, it's better to have too much than too little. So I'll mix this up in this big bucket here, then we'll start pouring, and we'll see how it shows up, or ends up. We're going to do black on this side, just pure black. Come on, come on, come on. And then over here, we're going to do our dirty pour.